Good morning, everybody. I was hoping we would get at least one more assembly member in the room. Oh, Austin just showed up. Okay. Glad you're here, Austin. Would you go ahead? I'm going to call this meeting to order. Mandy, would you the roll?
Mr. Constant?
Here.
Mr. Peterson? Ms. Kennedy?
Here.
Ms. Quinn Davidson?
Here.
And then for non-committee members that are on the assembly, Ms. Allard? Mr. Dunbar? Ms. LaFrance? Mr. Perez-Verdia? Mr. Rivera? Mr. Weddleton? Ms. Zalatel? Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, everybody. Welcome. I believe the reason why there's not a lot of attendance is that it's Tuesday instead of Thursday. We made a discussion at the last meeting of whether or not we should hold this meeting because I'm on vacation, and the answer was yes, let's hold this meeting. And I'm back just for today only from my trip. And so we have a couple of items to discuss. I don't believe we have anyone from the proposed contractor on the phone. Am I correct? Is there anyone there from RDI? There's not, and I didn't really expect them to be here because I don't think it's really proper to have them here before we have a contract award. But we have 3 items on the agenda: contractor introduction, timelines, and communications plan. We don't have an introduction today because we went through the whole process and we have items that were introduced on the addendum to finalize a contract. The chair's made a determination on who she wants to select, and we will go through those draft documents briefly today so members of the committee, members of the public, members of the administration can see where we're moving. And then we'll talk briefly about timelines and communications plans, but I'd hoped to have those conversations with the contractors. So they may be delayed until the next meeting. Is there anything anyone wants to add to the agenda, members? I'm not hearing any. So Mandy, would you go ahead and bring up first the AM and then the associated document we'll go through after that. Can you hear me, Mandy?
Yeah, I'm getting it loaded right now.
I'm getting a warning that I'm having bad connection issues. GCI is serving me not so great right now, but so if we can get that item up, the AM. Awesome. There we go. So the leadership has opted to enter into a contract with Resource Data Inc., RDI, after a competitive process to provide comprehensive reapportionment support to the legislative branch, including mapping and redistricting configuration, public comments, and public mapping. Based on the attached memo from the legislative branch, it's recommended that the Assembly approve this contract with RDI for professional services. And I'm not sure what that attached memo is. I haven't seen it, actually. The Assembly is subject to competitive requirements, the exception of legal counsel and other professional services, as it requires in the execution of its legislative functions. So would you scroll down? I haven't actually seen what's associated. For some reason, that didn't print. Oh, yeah. OK, I have this document. So then this is a brief narrative on how we are walking through the process approved by the voters. April 7, 2020, Proposition 12 amends the charter requiring 12 members with 2 members for each district, effective upon adoption of the state final plan. Except for, and this date's wrong, I think it's set for November 10th. On behalf of the Assembly, the clerk's office requested quotes from 3 vendors familiar with redistricting and reapportionment projects to aid the Assembly to reapportion itself. The Assembly leadership chooses RDI over E-Terra and CW Communications to provide professional services and comprehensive reapportionment support to the legislative branch, including mapping, reapportionment configurations, public comment system, public mapping. So essentially what's happening tonight is these items are 10D30 on the agenda. The sum you see there is pretty substantial, 172,530. There's fund certification pending appropriation from that funding pool, and about $70,000 is for what a member of the public and several people have asked for, which is that kind of last piece that's up there, the public mapping system. That's not a small cost to implement. So about $100,000 covers support for mapping and reapportionment proceedings, public outreach process, public comment tracking, public comment response, and then that's all in that kind of larger pool of funds. And the final pool would be the public mapping, where members of the public who are interested could draw their own maps, and if they meet the terms of the legal requirements that we put into the system, that they're contiguous and they have basically all of those elements built in, then those maps will be before us to consider as well. The state adopted this methodology this year and has had a number of maps submitted that they initially considered. So we're going through with that. So essentially, that's the plan for tonight. The leadership is going to ask that we do an immediate reconsideration tonight on this item, if passes, so that we can have them start working tomorrow, not today. So are there any input from members or questions or comments?
I have a question, Mr. Constant.
Yeah, please, Ms. Davidson.
Thank you. So the public mapping element, that's a separate issue than coming up with, as I saw on the agenda, sort of a communications plan, right? Around how do we communicate generally with the public, this process
Yes,
and timeline.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Very
And
different.
then
The mapping, if I might just, the mapping project
Yeah, go
really is just letting the public draw their own maps and submit them to us based on their own ideas.
Got it. Okay, that sounds great. And then my second question is, I was reviewing Dean's proposal PowerPoint this morning, and I see in that memo, we're declaring as of November 10th or 12th, whatever it is, that we are malapportioned. It's sort of interesting because even if we're adding another member, because there are so many districts, it's not necessarily the case that every district is going to change by 10%. So
Right.
I guess my question is the, say the population's gone down a little bit, but then you need to add people from, or I'm sorry, you need, say your population, your district's gone up a little bit, but then you need to take away some members to, support creation of a bigger district for District 1. So I guess I'm just wondering, when we say we are malapportioned, is that referring to one district or all districts? And what do we do as a result?
Right. So I think that probably the attorneys might have a different answer to that question than I will. The declaration of malapportionment is going to be based on the fact that at least District 1 is going to be completely malapportioned, because we need to increase a huge number of people,
Right.
Approximately 17,000 from somewhere. And so that will be a declaration of malapportionment for the entire municipality, in my opinion. And so all lines will be looked at, but I think there is at least one district in town that did shrink over the last 10 years, substantially enough that it may not have to change at all. And so if that's the case, then that's just how the maps would reflect. Mr. Gates is in the queue to answer as well. So go ahead, Dean.
Thanks, Mr. Constant. So I just wanted to speak to the definition of malapportionment, or malapportioned, and what that means. And I don't have anything in front of me reading from, but from memory and working on this the last time we did a reapportionment, we need to have the census numbers of the 2020 census and figure out the population within each current assembly election district, right, 1 through 6. And although one is getting 2 members, maybe by some population shift, number 1 within its current boundaries has the right number of members to not be malapportioned. That would be amazing. But generally, to determine malapportionment, you take the ideal number of population to be represented in each district so that it's equal, right? There are equal representation. And this district, I think, is 25,000. And then for determining whether we're malapportioned, we take the district that has the number below that ideal number. So if it's like 20,000 in District 1 at 30,000, and then the district that has a number above the ideal that has number, and then the percent difference between those two. And so it's not looking at one district that's malapportioned, but all 6 of them, and the 2 with the biggest deviation from the ideal population representation. So, and I'm going to say that's going to be District 1 and then the other districts, and then we just reapportion them all. So it won't be reapportioning 1 or 2, although of course they're not mapping and stuff, but we apportion all the districts if we have that apportionment. I hope that helps clarify a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, Dean. And Austin, I think effectively he suggested the same thing that I did, that all districts will be considered malapportioned as the municipality. But if a district has shrunk, there's a very good argument in the mapping process for that district to stay the same. And so that's the process you and I and members of this committee will sort through as we start through with the contractor, looking at the actual numbers and where the lines are drawn. And so I think that's a fair assessment that Dean just made. And yeah, so you and you know which district is shrunk. I mean, it's the data's all out there already. So
I actually haven't looked. I haven't looked at all.
Oh, it's your district. Your district has gone down by about 3,500 people, and so with the numbers changing that way, that's almost exactly the number that a district would have to reduce to meet the number. And so, in all likelihood, there's going to be very little change in your district.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's helpful. So when we say we're malapportioned, it doesn't. Yeah, it starts a process to evaluate all districts. And then we end up where we end. Okay, great. Thank you.
Exactly. And we wrestle with that dragon. Dean, do you have another piece of input? Your hand's still up.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm still haven't learned how to put my hand down. It doesn't give a trouble down.
Yeah, there you go. Crystal, did you have any inputs for that?
Yeah, I did want to chime in a bit because, it seems to me that we could say that a particular population number might stay the same in a district, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the lines you have that make up your district will actually still encompass that same number of people.
Right.
Should you have to accommodate whatever other district needs to gain or add. So
absolutely right.
Yeah, so it does. I can see where it gets pretty convoluted, and will definitely be a challenge no matter what. But I think I want, I've been telling people that the lines are going to move. Chances are will move, even though we might be retaining the same actual number of people within that district. But anyway,
that's true. And Crystal, you have to overlay the state districts, the state precincts as well. And so it's a little more complex than simply stating it will all stay the same or change whatever in this or that district. It's a very complex set of factors, and that's why we're appointed to do this work, is to sort through the complexities and identify a path that works based on our numbers, based on our districts and contiguity and the requirements the Constitution and the Charter put on us, plus based on the state lines and precincts and boundaries that they come up with, that they deliver to us on the 10th of November. Right, so all of that together, plus our own best thinking, plus the public's best thinking that come through the mapping that we're going to provide for them to do on their own, will drive the final product. So that's the philosophical approach, if you will.
Yep.
A very complex and interesting challenge.
Exactly, and that's what I've been telling people, is that this isn't easy. So thanks.
But it's interesting for sure. So with that, is there any other input from members of the Muni who want to add anything to that? Clerk's office, anyone? Attorneys? Hearing none, I'm going to check that box and just say, go ahead, Kenny. Crystal.
I did have another question, because since we were really talking about the contracts on this, I saw the letter from Terra through eTerra, but I don't remember seeing anything specific from the other two. So did we have access to those, their initial proposals?
Yeah, not from Crystal, not from CW. I think it is up on the website though. If we go, let me double check that.
Well, I haven't looked at the web page recently, so it could have been added. So anyway.
Yeah, I thought that was there. We had the E-Terra, which was one gentleman. Then we had CW, which was also one gentleman. And really, the rationale that strongly pushed us toward RDI was the fact that they brought a whole team of people that can manage the various elements. And things over even just the last 10 years have become so much more complex than they were a decade ago in terms of options and ability to look at data and all of the opportunities that are available. It became really clear through the interviewing process that only one of the bidders had the kind of necessary staffing, resource level, and thought through enough to communicate that they had that level of energy for us to be able to address. And so, yeah, I will make sure that all of those documents are placed up there if they're not.
Well, I thought E-Terra did too. Was he just basically subcontracting all those other positions? Because I know they were listed in his memorandum or his letter.
Yeah, when you look
Okay.
at it, it wasn't, he didn't bring it. And when we interviewed, it was not a robust presentation. It just didn't match. Right. And so when you interview someone, you look real close. Do their words match what they're saying? And it just felt like RDI was the only one that brought their full game.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah. So the E-Terra one is the MOA engagement letter and MOA task order 1 proposal that's on the website. So it's not listed that way. Maybe Mandy, before that, you could just retitle those E-Terra.
Yep, I'll do that.
Thanks. And then people will know. And I'll look around to see if Barbara, maybe you can send to Mandy the CW proposal as well, because that doesn't seem to be there. Other questions? Hearing none, we'll just briefly move on. This again is probably going to be a pretty short meeting just because we don't yet have the contractor, need the contractor to help us with the timelines and the comms plan. And so again, our timeline is as quickly as reasonably possible to do a good job. And we will have dates and times laid out as soon as we get the contractor on board and we're able to set that up with them. And the communications plan is kind of under the same rubric. As soon as we have the contractor on, we do have Claire now working for us who's going to help with some of the communications. But really, the contractor is going to help us drive that in correlation to the timelines we set up for all of the various stages that are mapped out. So I hate to have a low calorie update on that, but that's just where we are until we get that contract approved. Are there questions on timelines and communications plan? I'm not hearing any, and so I'm just going to leave it at that. Is there anything else members at this time want to talk about, to bring up for the process? Again,
and I have just
yeah, go ahead.
more of
Go
a
ahead.
scheduling issue, which is that I won't be available on the 28th. And so I'm wondering if we could meet on the 26th or 27th or something next time. Or I'll just skip that meeting. But if it's like the general introduction, it might be nice to catch it.
Yeah. So, Crystal, do you have any beef moving it to the 27th in the morning?
I'm looking here, 27th. Are we trying to stick with something kind of routine?
Yeah, as soon as we get there, yes. But we're still slogging through, getting up to speed. Engines aren't all
Okay.
firing on all cylinders.
If we stick with the 9:30 in the morning, that works. Ethics and elections is at
Okay.
noon that day. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Okay.
Mandy, can you set that up for the 27th at 9:30?
Great.
I'm guessing.
Thank
you
you.
said yes. Okay, great. Anything else? Okay, then I'm going to move on to the next item. We're going to have a short meeting today. Audience participation. Anyone from the public wish to speak up?
Hello.
Mr. Haberman?
Yes, I set my timer. My name is Eugene Carl Haberman. I follow the public process. When the public process is done appropriately, decision made by the governing body, more like the public interest. First is, again, it's just an audio connection for the public to connect with you and follow with what you're doing. It's not really a real Teams meeting. It's audio only, and one would hope that you would do that. Second, the only thing on the website for the committee is an agenda, though there is reference to the September 30th meeting with a whole mess of documents. So one would, if you're going to have, you can carry over those documents to the next meeting, which is today. Second is this, I'll be speaking out, you know, in person to be heard on proper public decorum, but I won't stress that right now, but I'm speaking in person to be heard tonight. But I want to stress this thing about key things. It's a chaos over there, and it's more chaos by the scenario, as I'm talking about assembly meetings, is the fact that you don't have sign-up sheets. And in the borough, you have a place for sign-up sheets for each particular item, and that prevents the situation for people who have to stand in line for hours and hours and hours. This would resolve the situation greatly if you move the direction that the Metro Borough has been doing years, and I have been saying to you to follow through on it, to create more comfort for everyone involved and clearly identify who is speaking. And also the identified thing is we need to know who's speaking, because it's gone to a situation where people are not giving their even only first names, if that, and the identity of the party speaking at meetings should be identified. And that's happening in most recent scenario. I'll close with that, and I wish you all the best, and thank you very much, with approximately 1 minute to spare.
Thanks, Mr. Haberman. I would just point you, if you go back to the committee website, there's the September 30 agenda, but if you look at the very top, there's the agenda link, and right below it is draft AM 681-2021. So the documents we were describing are in fact there, just they're above the fold, and they'll probably get dropped below after this meeting when we put up the materials for the next meeting. So with that, is there anyone else from the public who'd like to be heard?
I caught that, but that's what I said. It's over on the September 30th, and that you have to refer there instead of on the this meeting for October. And thank you.
Yep. Is there anyone else from the public? Mr. Neese, are you here? Nope. Okay. With that, if there's no other business, I love to run a short meeting, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Move to adjourn.
There's
Second.
unanimity. Talk to you later. Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.